Hi, and welcome to What's Up Williston, the town's monthly TV show where we take a closer look at things going on in our community. I'm your host, Erik Wells. This month, we're going to look at winter health and safety, things to be aware of. My guest this month, first guest, is Prescott Nadeau, senior firefighter with the Williston Fire Department. Prescott, thanks for being on.
Good to be on, Erik. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So how was your commute in this morning to the studio? It's kind of messy out there.
It's very messy, Erik. Today especially was very slushy, very snowy. A thin layer of ice underneath that snow made for a very interesting commute, shall I say, which definitely brings up a few safety topics regarding travel in the winter months. And the winter months last for a long time in Vermont.
Really?
They do, contrary to some people's belief. So, we in the Williston Fire Department, we have three messages that we really want to get out to people regarding winter travel and keeping safe during the winter months. Our first one, give yourself extra time. Second one, dress for the weather that's at hand, even when you're traveling. And finally, keep your vehicle prepared. So I guess a little embellishment on those. The first one is probably the most important. If we give ourselves extra time in the morning, and nobody wants to wake up earlier than we have to, we set that alarm just for the right amount of time to get us out the door. Give yourself that extra, even 15 minutes. I gave myself 30 this morning, and I was just on time for my first appointment. What that will do is that will allow us to clean the car off fully, all your windows clear for safety. It will allow us to drive slower, which is incredibly important, not just for following distance the car ahead of you in case the roads are slicker than expected, but also for other drivers. Sometimes it's not us that we need to be concerned about, it's the folks around us. Yielding that extra 15 or 30 or so minutes can help all of the drivers on the road. Dressing for the weather is kind of an interesting topic because, you know, you and I are dressed like this right now, but when we get back in our cars to travel home at the end of the day, I'm hoping that we both are going to bundle up and have, you know, gloves, a hat, and a winter coat. Because truth be told, we never know what's going to happen on the road. Whether our vehicle slides off on the interstate or on a back road, it could be dark out. And if the weather stays the way it is right now, which is chilly and slushy, the last thing we want to be doing is trying to get out on the side of the road with very little winter clothes or appropriate clothing on. And then finally, our vehicle preparedness tips, really making sure that we have the appropriate items in our vehicles at all times during these winter months. The number one thing that we recommend is making sure that your vehicle has proper winter tires and that all the fluids are topped off. We also really like to have a blanket or some type of maybe a warm coat or something in the vehicle to make sure that if you do have an accident and your vehicle shuts off, which it should be off if it's in an accident, that you're able to stay warm. And then finally, just making sure that, especially things like your snow scraper, instead of one of those little dinky ones, we want to make sure you have one large enough to be able to not only clean off all of your windows, but a thing that we've been finding recently is people aren't clearing the snow, whether it be off the back of a pickup truck or on the top of your car. That can create a hazard for other drivers if you're on, you know, interstate speed, 60 miles an hour, and some of that snow or ice even comes flying off. It can create a real hazard for other drivers.
One of the things you mentioned was following distance in the winter. If you could speak some more about that.
Sure. So I think it's one of those things where if you give yourself that extra time, hopefully you can afford that necessary or recommended following distance. And normally a few vehicle length, we're talking at least a couple of vehicles of travel distance ahead of the vehicle in front of you. But the most important thing to remember is just because your road that you live on is plowed and taken care of doesn't mean that all the roads you travel on are going to be that well maintained. Our Public Works Department in Williston is phenomenal, and the State Agency of Transportation, they're all phenomenal, but they just can't get to everywhere all the time, at every moment.
It takes time to do that loop.
Oh, it does take time, and if you pull up to an intersection that you expect to be clear, you apply those brakes, the vehicle ahead of you is just starting down into the intersection, it's very likely that you could create a motor vehicle crash. Is it going to be major? Probably not, but it's going to jam up your entire day, and you really, really hope that you're going slow enough that there's no injuries.
So key takeaways: give yourself time, be prepared.
Yeah, and increase that following distance. Yeah.
So we've got a number of topics we talked about before the show today to go over, and I know you guys are always busy at Williston Fire and Rescue, and we want to go over some things in the winter time, especially some topics that people should be aware of to stay safe and be aware out there. What if we could talk about some heating systems to start? Maintenance, CO levels, wood stove safety, some of the hot topics here.
Absolutely. And Eric, heating safety is incredibly important because we all have to heat our homes, and we do it all around the town of Williston. People heat their homes in multiple different ways, whether it be with natural gas, a wood stove, many different options, space heaters to some degree. So let's hit on a couple of those. Number one being we've had a number of issues regarding furnaces and CO issues, carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is the silent killer for a reason, and it's because if you don't have a carbon monoxide detector, there is no way that you are going to know if your house is filling up with CO. So the number one and most important takeaway is you must have a carbon monoxide detector on every level of your home. That includes your basement, that includes the first floor, and absolutely if you have a second floor, usually where the bedrooms are, you want one on that second floor as well. Keeping along the same tune, carbon monoxide just doesn't happen randomly. Often it's because of a maintenance issue. So our main recommendation regarding any heating system is that you have it inspected or checked. Our recommendation is annually, but you as a homeowner out there are going to know how often your heating system is used, whether it be, like I said, using natural gas or if you do heat with wood. But that inspection is going to be different. Do you hire a chimney sweep every year because you burn 6 cords of wood? Maybe not. But it's incredibly important if you do utilize a wood stove or even have a fireplace, just for aesthetics and fun time around the holidays, that you get that chimney and that flue area inspected.
If you're getting inspected, probably got you to get on the books late summer, early fall.
Definitely, and there's a bunch of people out there, businesses out there that really want that are there for our service to help us out with those inspections and make sure that we stay safe. So God forbid, you don't actually have an issue related to carbon monoxide. The fire department responded early this very morning to a call for a carbon monoxide detector that was going off, and the occupants didn't think much of it, so they just reset it, and it went off again. And this time they changed the batteries. They did the right thing. They said it's probably a battery issue. After it went off a third time is when they contacted the fire department. We arrived at their house to find over 1,400 parts per million of carbon monoxide in the location where the issue was, which was in the garage. I know that's an isolated incident, but it does really ring true to having those smoke and carbon monoxide detectors on every level, but also heeding the warnings, being sort of aware that when that detector goes off, if you've changed your batteries recently, it's most likely not a battery-related issue, and we are more than happy as the fire department to come and check that out.
You said 1,400 parts per million. What's an acceptable range, if any?
Well, just to give you an indication, our multi-gas meter that we will bring into homes and businesses to check, that will go into alarm at 30 parts per million. And at 30 parts per million, the firefighters will actually wear our SCBA, our air masks, to protect ourselves. Because while 30, 200, or even 1,400 is hazardous, it's usually over a period of time. And unfortunately, a lot of these issues present overnight, which means if the detector goes off at midnight, 2 in the morning, you might be really tired, wanting to just go back to sleep because you have to wake up early in the morning to go to work. But you have to heed that warning and sort of acknowledge that it might be time to call the fire department.
Another thing with where all these systems vent outside, you've got snow coming, you've got wind coming. Checking those and make sure the vents aren't covered. Right?
Absolutely. Obviously, any type of covered vent is going to mean a carbon monoxide backup into your home. Right now, we've been fortunate. We've only had a few snowstorms that have dumped a decent amount of snow in the Williston area, but that doesn't mean that other viewers might not have friends or relatives outside of the Williston area. It also doesn't mean that later this year, we will probably experience a number of larger snowfalls. With that, you have to, and you would also, Eric, mention the blowing snow. That's something that people rarely think about. If it blows up against the side of your home that happens to be where your vent is, you need to make sure that anytime we have inclement weather that is starting to accumulate or a lot of wind, that you really handle that appropriately and shovel those vents out.
What about wood stoves? Folks, leave the ashes in there overnight. What's the best way to dispose of ash from your wood stove, hot coals? What should someone do to prevent a fire?
We've had a number of relatively large fires related to people improperly disposing of those ashes. And so I think the most important takeaway is going to be to, once you clean out your wood stove and you have those ashes, first of all, make sure that it's in a metal container. You don't want it, if you just happen to have a really rigid, thick plastic, it's got to be a metal container. And you want that container to be stored well away from your house, well away from a porch, garage, really any combustibles. And it's amazing how long those ashes will actually stay active, and all it would take was wind or something to knock it over, that conducting heat to actually create a catastrophic fire in your home.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So another thing we wanted to touch on here was ice management. It's out there. It's a lot of places in the winter. Some recommendations for folks. I know you see slips and falls are something we want to avoid, and be prepared to clean up the ice. And
absolutely. And I think slips and falls it's actually a great deal of the EMS calls that we respond to are related to falls. Granted, some of those can't necessarily be helped or might be related to things around the home. But during these winter months, a lot of those falls are related to snow and ice. And so the most important thing, whether it be a business or your own home, is to make sure that you shovel and clean off your walkways, and then you have some of that snow melt, ice, rock salt, whatever you choose to have in your own home or business. Be liberal with it. You want to make sure that it is there for your safety. And I think the worst thing, and I guess talking about the worst case scenario regarding a fall, is if you skimp on the ice melt and you end up, either you or a friend, a family member, a coworker has a slip and fall injury, that could take you out of the picture, whether it be your job or your home life, for many months, depending on, especially, God forbid you were to be injured with a broken bone, for example.
Another thing we were talking about is shovel access. Keeping your walks clear, and also, I thought it was fire hydrants out there. I wonder if you could touch on those topics for when you guys arrive on a scene, what will help you respond quickest?
Eric, 100% a great topic to talk about, especially in line with the slips and falls related to ice and snow management. While you're out there shoveling your walkways, whether it be, front steps, things like that, really great to consider that when fire and EMS shows up, let's go with a medical emergency first. We have personnel that need to access the home in the sort of the easiest way to be able to access and maybe get the patient out of the house. And also we have our stretcher. And although people can walk sometimes, we have to assume that they will not be able to walk and will have to come out via stretcher. So to that degree, I know that it might mean a little bit extra shoveling, if you have a long walkway or something along those lines. But nobody ever expects to have to be transported by fire and rescue. And I can't tell you the number of times that we show up on a scene and the driveway is not maintained, much less the walkway. Now, Eric, we're very fortunate that we show up with a few extra folks. You're not just going to get 2 people on an ambulance. You're going to get a few other folks on another fire department vehicle. The reason we do that, one of many, is because we often need that extra set of lifting help in the home or around the home, and also somebody to be able to ensure our safety. Those firefighters that we bring with us ensure our safety, whether it be assisting with cleaning off that walkway, putting down some ice melt to make sure that that colleague or loved one is able to get out of the house on the stretcher safely. And actually, while we're on the topic there, the fire hydrants you had mentioned. Earlier I had said that our winter months often we usually expect a few snowstorms that give us a hefty amount of snow. With that is going to come potentially covering up of our fire hydrants. And it's no fault of the weather. It's going to do what it does. What is really, I guess, a plea, I will make this plea, is that when when the weather comes in, it does dump all of that snow. We're just asking that if you have a fire hydrant in front of your home, or really in the close vicinity of your home, and it's safe to do so, we're just asking that you please shovel that hydrant out. What we're looking for is 3 feet on all sides. The reason that particular number sticks out is when we attach our fittings onto that fire hydrant and we have our hose coming off it leading to our fire truck, that distance to be able to do that effectively, efficiently, and have room to work is 3 feet on all sides.
So looking at the notes here, I think we hit most of the topics. Another thing we were talking about was pets outside. What are some tips with your pet outside in the winter?
So we've been talking a lot about a hefty amount of snow and large quantities of snow. One of the things that occurred already this year and will definitely occur in the future months is those really frigid cold temperatures. And I think the most important thing to remember, we all love our pets, but after you've had an animal for a really long time, it is foreseeable that you may expect that dog to, for example, stay outside for a period of time to do their business. The trick is, if it's below zero, sub-zero with windshield temperatures, and we as human beings don't want to go outside, the pets don't want to stay outside long either. So really keeping a very watchful eye on your pets when you let them out to do their business, and especially keeping a watchful eye if they, if you have them outside for any length of time. They are often just like us, and they want that love and attention, and they also want to be cared for in those sub-zero temperatures. So
then, so Christmas wrapped up here a few weeks back. I know, always hard to part with the tree sometimes for folks that celebrate Christmas. Recommendations now with Christmas tree management?
So this is not going to make some people happy, but and I'll be honest, my family just took our tree down last week. So we kept it up just after the new year, but it's time to let the tree go, especially if you've had it around that holiday season. At a certain point, the tree just isn't going to drink any more water, and when that happens, it's going to dry right out. It might still look green, but I'll tell you right now, you'll start to notice a lot of the needles start dropping on the ground, and even just a light brush of one of the branches will make it shed quite a few needles. That's a bad sign. And Christmas trees, although we haven't responded to a isolated Christmas tree fire in many years, they are devastating because especially if the tree is dried out, it can cause a catastrophic fire in the room it's in. We're talking less than 1 minute. Wow. That fire can be enveloping almost the entire room, thanks unfortunately to that dried out Christmas tree.
Yeah, I can't imagine having lights on a dry tree would help anything there. It'd be something that really starts it off.
That's it. And Eric, you hit on something else there that I had forgotten to mention regarding the heating safety is, mention about the lights. That's a critical component of Christmas tree safety, and holiday safety is making sure there's no frays or potential breakage in those wires to cause an electrical fire. But another issue that people start to maybe get a little more lax about is space heaters. So any type of heating device, whether it be actually space heater, wood stove, fireplace, we're looking for at least a 3-foot radius. That number, 3-foot radius around the fire hydrant, 3-foot radius around any of these heating elements. Reason for that is, again, whether it be an ember popping out of a fireplace, hopefully you have some type of protective screen, or that space heater that is just too close to that dried out Christmas tree, it's a recipe for disaster, and it's oftentimes around the holidays, and even now as we enter into the new year, we want people to be very astute, very on top of things like that with their own safety regarding any heating element.
This is all great information and takeaways for our viewers. I think we're just about out of time. Was there anything we didn't touch on that you want to add before we wrap up?
No, I think, these issues are incredibly important, and I think that the number one takeaway out of all of these is safety is very important. If you have any questions, please reach out to myself, Prescott, Nadeau with the Williston Fire Department. Our Fire Chief, Ken Morton, or any of the staff members are more than willing to not only entertain questions over the phone, but if you had an issue that you wanted us to come take a look at your home, you thought that there might be an element of concern, please reach out to us. And the final thing is just regarding, literally the number one takeaway: smoke and carbon monoxide detectors on every level of your home, and make sure that those batteries are changed and ready to go.
Well, thanks so much for coming on, Prescott. Really appreciate it, and thanks to you and all your colleagues for all you do for our community.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks. Next this month, the winter can present challenges with getting outside and staying active compared to other months throughout the year. Maintaining a good range of motion is important for everyone, especially as we get older. Recently, I met with Erik Wells, an athletic trainer with the Rehab Gym in Williston, to go over some daily movements and stretches that can help maintain a sound range of motion that you can do inside even on the coldest of winter days. Joining me now is Erik Wells, an athletic trainer at the Rehab Gym. We're going to talk about mobility and movement today. In the wintertime, I know everyone's guilty of it at times, sitting around, whether you're at your desk, you're inside, you might not be moving as much. So we want to go over some different movements and strategies today to make sure you stay healthy throughout the year. Erik, why is this important?
So you said exactly, a lot of people are sitting, especially in the wintertime, a little bit more. With that lack of movement kind of comes generally more stiffness, whether that's kind of the result of long-term inactivity or shorter bouts of it. As a result of that, our body starts to lose our ability to kind of move naturally and freely. As a result of that, we then can't move well through our functional movement patterns or movements of daily life. So walking, sitting and standing, reaching up high into the cabinet for that cup or dish that's up taller. And then a lot of times with kind of chronic bad movement becomes pain and ultimately injury. So the importance of kind of maintaining that proper and natural movement really goes a long way in preventing some of these chronic issues that we typically see within the rehabilitation setting or just kind of within the gym itself.
So we've opened up the studio here. We've got some we're gonna get on the floor here and demonstrate. We've got some different tools that Erik will explain. So I guess we'll jump into it.
Yeah, so we'll start down on the floor. We're gonna use a tool called the foam roller here. These first couple exercises are going to be for what's called the thoracic spine or the upper back here. So one of the things that we really see quite a bit, a lot of us sit throughout the day, whether it's for work or you get home, sit on the couch in the evening, and we kind of get ourselves into this forward posture. So we get tightness in the chest, tightness in that spine. Our goal for some of this work is to really be able to kind of just open that back up, trying to reverse some of those effects of everything just pulling us forward. So first couple things we'll do, one is just going to be a rolling technique over that upper back. What I'm going to have you do is kind of have your hands behind your back here. Okay. Roller is going to basically run the length of your shoulder blades. So lay right flat here, bend those legs, hips are going to come up, and then we're just going to kind of rock back and forth, really just the length of your shoulder blades. Yep, so it's not a huge movement. You might kind of feel a couple of cracks within that spine. Yep. With any of the stuff we're doing, it's important that it's a pain-free thing. Stretching can sometimes be uncomfortable, but should never be something that hurts. There's kind of a fine line between those two things here. So generally we'll kind of have people go back and forth for 10 rounds of these or so. And then right from this same position, what I'll have you do is just drop those hips to the ground. Yep. And then hands will stay behind the head still. And we're just going to kind of open the shoulders and then open that chest up here. So again, this kind of opens the chest, brings that spine into that extended position. And I like to have people kind of rock back and forth here. So you'll kind of come up to a bit of a sitting position, perfect. And then we're just going to arch back, drive those elbows open. Should feel kind of a nice stretch across that chest and then that spine just coming into that extended position here. And again,
reverse sitting at the computer.
Yeah, exactly. Open that chest back up and helps kind of with that posture to keep us up nice and tall, keeps the shoulders open. And this one usually feels pretty good for most people.
Yeah, feeling good right now.
Yep. So again, about 10 of these I'll have people do. And then real quickly, we'll kind of go into one other exercise with the foam roller that I like here. We call this an open book exercise. And again, this is a thoracic spine mobility exercise. So I'll have you lay on your side facing this way.
Okay.
And that top leg is going to come up on top of the roller like this. Hands are going to come forward here. And then just going to have you open up with head and chest coming open. It's perfect. And then you're just coming back closed here. So keys on this one are to keep the leg down on the floor and then let that spine open, head turns with you. So we're almost kind of looking at that hand as it opens up.
Okay.
And same thing here, 10's a bit of an arbitrary number, but we'll throw 10 or so of these on each side. And the big key on this one is to make sure that that knee stays down on the roller. So not everyone necessarily is going to have a foam roller at home. This is one that we can still do if we stack a couple of pillows up underneath that leg to kind of give us a support here and still open up the chest like this. So the first two a little bit more tricky to do without the roller, but this one is doable, of course, with just a couple of pillows at home. That looks good there. We'll go ahead and take a rest with that one.
All right.
Foam roller can be used for a ton of stuff. So a lot of times, the stretches we're going to go into here, I'll have people go through kind of a full routine of some foam roller work with it as well. But for today, we'll kind of just go through a few other stretches with the knowledge that, should you have other questions or want to go through some of the stuff, we can always be available to help people out develop a safe routine for use in the home or in the gym or whatever that might be.
If foam rollers, if someone wants to get one of those, probably inexpensive, find them on Amazon.
Yeah,
find them a lot of different vendors
exactly.
out there.
Anywhere online, any sporting goods store locally will have them. We sell them right in all of our locations. So at the Kismet building in Williston, we'll have them for sale. And there's multiple densities to these and everything like that. So typically when you're getting started with one, you're going to want one that's a little bit softer in nature, and then we can kind of work up from there, just because it can be a little uncomfortable to use one of these originally.
Okay, that makes sense.
So next thing we'll do here, so we kind of talked about that sitting position. A lot of times what happens is that those hip flexors get real short too. So a stretch I really like to kind of work on that, we call it just like a half kneeling hip flexor stretch. So have you come up on the mat.
Okay.
One leg's going to be down on the floor, other leg's just going to come up in front like this. Cues I'll usually use for people is kind of make sure we tuck those hips underneath. Belly kind of stays nice and tight, and then we're just going to shift forward into that stretch. You should feel a nice pull down the front of your leg there.
Good.
And then another trick to this, if you're not getting quite the pull you're looking for, if we put one hand up in the air here, that's going to get that shoulder to stay stretched out a little bit for you, and then still get that nice stretch here in the front of that leg. That one usually feels pretty good as well. And again, this one's kind of working to address that tightness that can come from a lot of sitting throughout the day. Hip flexors kind of can be naturally tight in nature anyway, so it's a good stretch to work into the mix. Usually we'll hold for 30 to 40 seconds on one side, switch to the other. I like to have people do 2 or 3 rounds of this as we're working on it. So
I'll get the other side going.
yep,
for a second
get it
here.
even me out.
Even me out.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Tuck those hips, get into that stretch, and then we can throw that hand up overhead if we need a little bit more to it. That looks perfect.
This is a good kind of full body stretch, feels like.
Exactly. Yep, we're getting a little bit of shoulder work in here, as well as obviously really targeting that hip for us. That's good.
All right.
Cool. Another one, so we'll use another tool that we frequently kind of will use with any of our mobility work. At home, it's as simple as grabbing kind of a dog leash, a piece of rope, throwing a loop in the bottom of it. It really gives you the ability to kind of latch around a foot or whatever it is that we're trying to stretch. Sometimes we'll use this for the shoulder here as well. But really a great tool to kind of be able to relax the rest of your body and still stretch the muscle that we're after. So here we'll just work into a simple hamstring stretch. We're going to throw the loop of this rope just around the foot here. You can lay right on your back.
Okay.
And then basically just going to be able to pull this leg up towards you. I'll have people do this with knees straight like we have here. You're going to notice that stretch is kind of down lower in the leg. Almost you're going to feel like it's in your calf.
Yep.
And again, 30, 40 second hold here. And then the other thing that I'll typically have people do is actually bend that knee a little bit. That's going to change that feeling where that stretch is. It's going to be down lower kind of in that muscle belly some more. You'll find you probably can get a little more pull versus when that leg is straight.
Oh, yeah.
And that way we're kind of stretching that tissue in 2 different locations a little bit. And again, this is that 30, 40 second hold. Usually have people do one side and then the other. And the reason I prefer this over kind of that standard hamstring stretch where you see people bending over, touching their toes, this keeps your back in a nice healthy position as well. So if we have any folks who have kind of low back issues at all, that forward flexion position usually doesn't feel very good. So here we're in a nice safe position for that spine. We can get that good stretch in here.
a better time of day to do these, in the morning, afternoon, night, or it doesn't really matter?
Yeah, so we kind of say that the best time that you're going to do any of this stuff is the time that you're going to do it. So
Okay.
whenever you kind of have time in your
That's easy to
schedule.
remember.
Yeah, exactly. If you can get it, if you can get a little bit of work in the morning before you start your day, great. A lot of times some nice stretching helps kind of relax after you get home from work, but whenever you're going to do it is the right time to do it.
Okay, that works.
Easy as that.
Let's find the time.
Yeah, right.
Doesn't take too long.
And then one other one, so no equipment kind of needed for this here for a nice stretch. And again, here we're going to kind of tie in that thoracic spine, so that upper back, and then the inside of the leg. What we'll do here is kind of throw one leg out to the side. We're going to have hand on the floor, and then one hand's going behind our head. We're going to rotate close with this, so trying to bring the elbow across, and then we're going to drive open, so trying to turn through that chest, and then coming back close. I'll just have you bring this hand in front of you a little bit more. Perfect. Yep, so we're kind of opening up like that. Good. We see we have that nice rotation kind of in that upper spine here, low back staying pretty still. And as we come close, we usually get a nice stretch on the inside of that leg that's out long here. And I probably have you even come a little bit further forward with this hand in this way. Yeah, perfect. There you go. So again,
Kind of got it in front of my nose almost.
yeah, almost like right under your face, and then kind of in line with that knee here as well. So the knee that's down is the hand that's down is the usual way that I will describe this one for us. And that looks good. And same thing with most of this other stuff. 10 on one side, 10 on the other is usually a safe bet for a lot of this stuff here.
Yeah, I can feel a lot of these really hitting the shoulder muscles too.
Yep. So it's always nice when we can kind of combine a few different exercises to make sure, or a few different body parts within one exercise. Gives us the ability to kind of be a little bit more efficient with our time. That's obviously something that everyone's usually pretty short on. So if we can do more with less, then it's always a good thing.
So really key takeaways for folks are these exercises. I think we've been doing this for maybe 10 minutes or so. Yeah. You could have anything going on at home. You could have television on. You could have radio on. Talking with your people at home.
Yeah.
But
you can have a couple of people doing it at once. You can have a conversation as you're working on it. Yeah. So if you have 10-15 minutes in your day, there's all kinds of stuff we can work on with a foam roller and a band to really get some really good mobility work going. That really has some very long-term positive impacts.
So if someone wants to learn more, I know you've done a mobility class at the Rehab Gym before.
Yeah.
And it might be something you guys are talking about offering in the future.
Yeah, so out at our Williston location, looking to get one of those going. Hopefully, whether it's this winter, come springtime, we have one. We've had a long-standing one running in our Colchester location as well. Where we really go through a lot of education on these tools. It's all stuff you can do at home. The tricky part is just knowing what's right for you to do. Every one of us has kind of maybe some similar stuff that we need work on, but everyone also has some individual things. So it helps to kind of have that individual attention to work on some specific things for you. But again, stuff it's very easy to do within the home once you know what it is that you need.
Perfect. Well, anything else we didn't touch on, Erik, that you want to add here?
Yeah, I think the big thing, as we're working through this stuff here is just making sure that if you're going through any of this stuff at home, if you have injuries that, either are old injuries or ones you're working through now, we never want to start a large fitness routine without if you have an injury without some sort of oversight in that. So if you're finding that you're going through some of this stuff and there's aches or pains, or it's certainly making something feel worse, then we don't want that to be the case. So if that's something you're running into, best to kind of either talk with your doctor or find kind of come in and talk with us, one of the PTs or athletic trainers that work with us. We'll be able to give you some tips to make sure that whatever it is you're doing is safe to be doing.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, sure.
Really appreciate it, and I feel good. So.
All right, perfect.
Thanks for your help.
Thanks for having me.
Finally this month, let's take a look at some things going on around town in our Community Notebook segment. Town Meeting Day 2019 is coming right up. Petitions to run for elected office are due to the town clerk's office by January 28th. The last day to file petitions with the town clerk, signed by 5% of the registered voters for articles to be included in the town warning, is January 17th. If you'd like to request an absentee ballot for town meeting, give the town clerk's office a call at 878-5121. Dog licenses for 2019 are available at the town clerk's office. There's a number of programs coming up in the library this winter. Story time in French, a substance abuse prevention book discussion, Put Your House on a Diet series, Mahjong, it's a game to play, Audubon Vermont Birds, Beets, and Brussels Sprouts. To learn more about these programs, visit the library website on the screen or give them a call or stop by Some require pre-registration, some don't. Also, with town meeting coming up, there's a number of resources available to learn about the town budget. You can visit the town website, town.williston.vt.us, for these resources and information. Go on the home page, look under the News Brief section, it will take you to this page. Coming up this month is Martin Luther King Jr. Day on Monday, January 21st. The town offices will be closed that day, but Williston Police and Fire are always open. Reminder, the Town of Williston's on social media. Follow us at Town of Williston VT or like us on Facebook. We're always looking for feedback and segment ideas here on What's Up Williston. I'm Erik Wells, assistant to the town manager. Feel free to reach out with an email or a phone call with any ideas or feedback. I'd love to hear from you. So that's going to wrap it up this month. Thanks for joining us on What's Up Williston. Our next episode will premiere on Thursday, February 14th. I want to thank Aiden, our director, for all the work behind the scenes here today. I'm Erik Wells, and I'll see you around town.